When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everybody, my name is Jose Prado, Man-Made Survival. Thanks so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I greatly appreciate it because all this information is very, very important, especially for you, because if you have all this information available to you, you can connect the dots, it'll click in your head, and then you'll be able to take action accordingly depending on where you live. All right, so I want to start this though by thanking you for everything that you've done so far, which you have made this channel grow. Thank you so much for leaving your comment. Thank you for liking the videos, for sharing the videos, for subscribing, not just on YouTube but on all the other platforms as well. There's a comment I want to cover here, and I want to give a shout out to Jefferson. Thank you for your comment, and I'm glad that you like the show, and I'm very glad that you've shared it with your brother-in-law, and I'm glad that he likes it as well. Now, on the question you had about the book, is that you have to type in www. in order to be able to go to the website that has the book. I don't know how to fix that issue where you can just type Preppers Secrete Cache and it goes to the website. You have to type in www. And I don't know how to fix it. I've tried to fix it. I tried to get my brother to fix it. And quite frankly, neither one of us can. And I don't have the money to be able to hire somebody to fix that problem for me. So until I can save some money or raise some money, I would have to tell you that you have to type in www.preppersecretcache.com in order to be able to access the website for the book. And, that goes for everyone else as well. And I want to go ahead and take time again to thank everyone that has ordered the book. I'm honored that you have done it, and I thank you so very much for doing so. So if you would do me a favor, can you please take a picture of yourself with the book? Or, at least let me know on Facebook that you have it, that you received it. Because, everything's going on with the mail service. I don't know. Hopefully you got it in a timely manner. But anyways, now there's another question I want to address. Or it wasn't really a question. It was more of a comment that I want to address on YouTube. And here's that comment. I'm screwed. I live in an apartment and I have grown kids that refuse to leave Los Angeles area. My son's mother also refuses to let me take him to another state. I would have left already if not for my children. All right, so to you, I just want to say, don't feel like you're in despair. Don't feel bad. You feel like you have nowhere to go or you don't know what to do. All right, so what I want to say to you right now is that if you live in an apartment in Los Angeles, if something major happened, you're gonna have to bug out. All right. So there's 3 things that could happen that would force you to get out, and not just you, but your children as well. The first one would be a nuclear strike. All right. And you live in a very popular area, which would be pretty much a target number 1 for any enemy that we have. Right. Because they can create a lot of casualties very quickly. Now that would force them to leave if you survive it. Now 2 would be an EMP. An EMP would not only create chaos in the cities, but the fact that there would be no food and water would make you have to go. All right. That's the second scenario. And it's very simple. And number 3 would be an economic collapse. Something like we saw in Venezuela, where there's hyperinflation and there's nothing to eat. Of course, if you can't pay your rent, you get evicted, you're going to have to go. So the steps you have to take are these. Number 1, you have to have a plan, right? Because when something like this happens, they're going to freak out, but you can say, hey, don't freak out. I have a plan. And then you take them to it, right? So you're going to have to plan for this. You're going to have to plan on where you're going, how you're going to get there, what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, and how you're going to defend yourself and your family from the moment you left until the moment you come to your next location. Now, remember, if you have to leave and you don't have anywhere to go, you just went from being a citizen to being a refugee. But if you somewhere to go, if you have somewhere to bug out, you just go from one location to your next, right? So this can be broken down into 2 different ways. One, if you have somebody you can rely on that lives in the country or in another state, that also lives in the country and another populated area, then you can talk to them and be like, hey, if something like this was to happen, can we come to you? If they say yes, great. Talk to them about prepping, see if they'll allow you to set up the infrastructure for self-sustainability for when the day comes. You want to have your chicken coop ready, your rain catchment system ready, whatever, supplies there for when you have to take your family there. Now, if you don't have someone to rely on, then you can save money and purchase something outside the state that's in a country, a rural area. Even if it doesn't have a home on it, you would just have, you can legally be there, and you're not a refugee. You don't have to depend on the government to rescue you. You can just go there and, continue life as, as best as you possibly can. Now, if you don't have the money, you can try to convince your children, since they're already grown, to buy, let's say, a vacation home, or, you can tell them that it would be great to have a house on the lake, or, you can try and convince them with different things and say, we can buy this plot of land outside the state. It could be, a vacation spot or whatever. But that's the best way to go. So remember, if something happens, they're gonna freak out. You're gonna have the plan. You have to know where you're going, how you're gonna get there, what you're gonna eat, what you're gonna drink, and how you're gonna defend yourself until you get to your destination. So hopefully you have someone you can rely on that lives outside the city and will take you with open arms if something bad was to happen. But anyways, I hope that helped. If you have any more questions, any more comments, I'll be happy to answer all of that for you. But anyways, I want to go ahead and get started with all these headlines that we have, because, boy, there's just things going on everywhere all the time. And it looks like things are, going from bad to worse. Now, let me go into a very small rabbit hole here. All right, this whole coronavirus, you should be taking notes on how everything's unfolding, because this can, at least to me, this qualifies as crap has hit the fan. You can take notes. So very quickly, one, people were in denial, right? And then that evolved to everybody panicked. Everybody bought all the toilet paper they could find, and now they want to return it. They can't. Two, everybody went from panic to now everybody wears masks and gloves, and all this is very deadly. And then three, everybody's tired of being locked down because they can't go to, they don't have money to be able to feed their family or pay rent, so now they want to get back to work. And now we're faced with food shortages and possibly water shortages. So it's just a big mess that has unfolded. Now, that has been dragged out for, 2-3 months. If it was a nuclear strike or an EMP, it would be very, very sudden. And on the economic collapse side, if the Fed did not pump as much as they already do, to inflate the bubble artificially, all this would have collapsed a very long time ago. The very fact that the Fed is here is what's keeping it from collapsing. But anyways, so that was the very, small rabbit hole that I want to go to. So right now you have to take notes, because this is the best, or this is the closest to crap has hit the fan very bad that has come out to us for a very long time. Now we can see other nations going through difficult times, and we can learn from that. But this is the very first one we've experienced in at least a very, very long time. But anyways, the first headline I want to give you is this one. Coronavirus-driven CO2 shortages threaten U.S. food and water supply, officials say. This from The Guardian. An emergency shortage of carbon dioxide gas, CO2, caused by the coronavirus pandemic may affect food supply chain and drinking water, a Washington State emergency planning document has revealed. The document, a COVID-19 situation report produced by the State Emergency Operations Center, contained a warning from the state's Office of Drinking Water about difficulties in obtaining CO2, which is essential for the process of water treatment. Quote, several water plants had received initial notification from their vendor that their supply would be restricted to 33% of normal. It further warns, so far utilities have been able to make the case that they are considered essential to critical infrastructure and have been returned to full supply. In an open letter to the Vice President Mike Pence, the coalition warns preliminary data show the production of CO2 has decreased by approximately 20%, and experts predict that CO2 production may be reduced by 50% by mid-April. It continues, a shortage in CO2 would impact the U.S. ability of fresh food, preserved food, and beverages, include beer production. All right, so of course, since the water company, their essential infrastructure, they're gonna use the government and say, hey, we need everything we can, and the government's gonna step in and do everything they can until the day they cannot. So this is why it's important for you to also have not only food preps, but have your water in place. All right, you can go to Sam's Club or you can go to Costco if you're able to yet in your area and buy a whole pile of water, a bottled water, and you can store it in your house if you're able to. And of course, you have to calculate that you need 1 gallon per person per day, and don't forget your pets. All right, and if you can do that, then you can also try to accumulate water by catching it, collecting it in barrels and stuff. But you have to make sure that it's legal in your state, because there's some states that it's illegal for you to be able to catch rain. So that's something you have to think about and prepare for. And if you can have a pond, then that'd be great as well. So you're gonna have to have food and water, and on the water you need at least 6 months to a year worth of water. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you look at your water bill and see how many gallons you use a day, or at least for that whole month, you're gonna have wide eyes. But anyways, I'm gonna move on to the next thing, which is Trump to order U.S. meat plants to stay open amid pandemic. This from MSN.com. President Donald Trump plans to order meat processing plants to remain open as the nation confronts growing food supply disruptions from the coronavirus outbreak, a person familiar with the matter said. Trump signaled the executive action at the White House on Tuesday, saying he planned to sign an order aimed at Tyson Foods Inc.'s liability, which had become a roadblock for the company. He didn't elaborate. What I would guess is that if Tyson makes people come in and they get sick, they can sue. I mean, that's what I'm thinking when I read that, right? But anyways, it goes on to say, the order, though, would not be limited to Tyson, the person said. It will affect many processing plants supplying beef, chicken, eggs, and pork. The White House decided to make the move amid estimates that as much as 80% of U.S. meat production capacity could shut down. But a union representing plant workers accused the administration of failing to develop meaningful safety requirements that would have helped contain the disruption. Quote, "We only wish that this administration cares much about the lives of working people as it does about meat, pork, and poultry products," said Stuart Applebaum, president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. At least 22 meat plants have closed within the past 2 months, reducing pork processing capacity by 25% and beef processing capacity by 10%, according to UFCW. Now, 22 plants, that's a big number of plants that have closed. If you remember on the podcast that I did before, just one plant that had closed, they processed 18 million per day and about 130 million a week servings of meat, whether it was pork, poultry, or beef. So that is insane. Now, 80%, those are the red flashes that they're seeing that they're trying to avoid. All right, so here's the next headline that I have, which is the Tyson chairman warning that the supply chain is collapsing. And here it is. Tyson Foods chairman warns the food supply chain is breaking and millions of pounds of meat will fail to reach stores after plants across the country closed due to COVID-19 outbreak. This from Daily Mail. The chairman of Tyson Foods warned Sunday that the food supply chain is breaking after coronavirus outbreaks forced the closure of their plants. John Tyson said millions of pounds of meat will fail to reach stores, and there will be a limited supply of our products available in grocery stores until they are able to reopen facilities currently closed. It comes after it was announced 2 million chickens will be killed in Delaware and Maryland because of lack of employees at processing plants. Tyson Foods announced last week that it was shuttering 2 pork processing plants, including the largest in the United States, to contain the spread of the coronavirus. At least 13 plants in total are said to have closed across the U.S. Chairman Tyson said Sunday, "We have a responsibility to feed our country. It is as essential as healthcare. This is a challenge that should not be ignored. Our plant must remain operational so that we can supply food to our families in America." This is delicate balance between Tyson Food places. This is a delicate balance because Tyson Food places team member safety as our top priority. All right, so we are seeing this unfold, right? Now, Trump is thinking about doing something about it, which, they could probably do something about it here in the next few days. Now that they're talking about it, especially since they got the numbers that 80% of the meat would be, pretty much shut down in the whole United States. Now they're going to try to avoid, riots and stuff. Please don't fall. Man, the tape is falling off. No. Anyways, so they're trying to avoid the meat, or they're trying to avoid riots because there would be no meat. Now, vegans, of course, are going to say, well, big whoop. But everyone else that relies on the meat, they're going to, have a hard time. Because, yes, of course, you can live off vegetables and meats and, not meats, but beans and rice and other things. You can make do until they reopen again and then we get this going. But we're having issues with those things as well. Here's the next headline. Russia limits grain exports to avoid domestic price spike amid global coronavirus crisis. This is from RT. The world's top wheat exporter, Russia, has capped grain shipments until July as the government quota to secure the domestic market amid the coronavirus crisis has been reached. However, shipments of current orders will continue. Moscow introduced export limits for certain grains, including wheat, rye, barley, and corn, saying that the supply should not exceed 7 million tons. While it was earlier expected that the cap will not be reached until mid-May, on Sunday, the Ministry of Agriculture announced that the quota was, quote, fully exhausted, end quote, effectively cutting off further supplies. All right, so Russia is a big exporter, and the United States takes imports from Russia. So if they're having problems to where they have to worry about their own countrymen first and they won't export anything, then of course we're going to have shortages here. So we're already having shortages of food with meats, and then we're having a shortage of wheat, which makes bread, and rye, barley, and corn, and probably other supplies too. Then of course we're going to see the grocery stores be hit by that, right? So that's a big problem that you have to prepare for. You're getting this information now so you can prepare for it later. So Russia is not the only place that is keeping their exports, or they're capping it. There's other places too. For example, Kazakhstan, I think it was, they are not exporting wheat either, rye, and other things. So it's a big problem. So if we don't have no meat and we don't have beans and stuff, we're just going to have a big issue here in the United States. Now, the next headline kind of gives you, an idea of the severity of everything. Pandemic sparks famine of biblical proportions across the world. This from strangesounds.org. The world is at risk of widespread famines of biblical proportions caused by the coronavirus pandemic. A report estimates that the number suffering from hunger could go from 135 million to more than 250 million. The fourth annual Global Report on Food Crisis highlights Yemen, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Afghanistan, Venezuela, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Syria, Nigeria, and Haiti. We could be facing multiple famines of biblical proportions within a short few months, he said. The truth is, we do not have time on our side. Lockdowns and global economic recession have already decimated their nest eggs. It only takes one more shock to push them over the edge. We must collectively act now to mitigate the impact of the global catastrophe, end quote. So things are dire, and I want to let you know, since we talked about the book Preppers Secrete Cache, I talk about these things. One of the things that I talk about is water. It says successfully allocating and rationing both food and water after disaster strikes is very important. The body can't go long without water, so that is the most essential item for survival. Yet, not all water is going to be clean enough to drink. There are some things that you can do to get access to water. This includes, and I list a few things. And the same thing with food, As previously mentioned, you need to have a very good supply of food that you can access when there is a disaster. Remember, it may be a month or longer before you can leave your shelter, so you need plenty of food. Some items to have on hand include baking soda, beans, beef jerky, canned fruits, canned meat, canned vegetables, cooking oil, dried milk, dried potatoes, dry rice, flour, honey, pancake mix, pasta, quick oats, sugar, and MREs. You are going to have enough on your mind, so you don't need additional stress due to being hungry and unable to plan meals. No parent wants to see their children go without food, since there is no guarantee your food will be safe or that you will have ways to prepare it. You need backup resources. All right, so that's just something quick that I talk about in the book. So that's why I encourage you to get the book. For times like this, having a book like this will help you a lot. And I want to remind you, the book is free. This is for your benefit, right? This book retails for $25. I want to get this book out to many people as possible, so you can have an idea, if you don't already, on what to do. Right? I try to give advice. I try to talk about some things. So I encourage you to get it, because right now, as we live in these days where there's a lot of things going on, you're going to have to need a plan. And I hope I'm able to provide you with that plan, or, I at least give you those points where you can connect the dots and say, this is what I need. So hopefully that's what the book is going to do for you. So that's going to be it for today. And I want to thank you so much. And I want to remind you, please share this video. Please share it with your friends and family. And remember, my name is Jose Prado, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.